빙주에 어떨 것 같습니까?
성공할 것 같습니다.
아 진짜죠?
네, 성공할 것
진심인가요?
왜 이렇게 뜸을 들여요? 이렇게 바로 나와야죠.
The teaser for the Cahaya DLC just dropped, and I understand that I'm supposed to be gushing and waxing lyrically about the free Cahaya DLC finally making its way into InZOI. But I struggle to be hyped because, well, it's largely due to my cynical disposition, but more so, I can't help but think, why? Why is it DLC, albeit free? Alright, so let's talk some lore about the free Cahaya DLC before I put on my tinfoil hat. Context is key here, so as a refresher, here's your crash course about all things Cahaya leading up to this week's teaser. When InZOI was still being worked on behind the scenes, we're talking pre-early access, we were privy to 3 cities. The 2 we have now being Bliss Bay and Doan, and then the formerly known Kusinku, now called Cahaya. Information at that time pointed to the Southeast Asian-based city to be shelved for a later time, and judging by the information we had then, it looked like tons of work would need to be done with both Bliss Bay and Doan even after early access release, so understandable. Later we would learn in an InZOI roadmap reveal that Kusinku, aka the Cat Island City, is now considered DLC. However, during early access, it would be free. The mood at the time was quite optimistic, myself included. We were hyped and generally excited for a Sims alternative. That said, even then, good questions were being asked as to why Kusinku would be packaged as DLC and not an additional base game update as is typical for early access games. Those detractors, those naysayers, were then taken out back and brought to a forever farm where my pet turtle Blastoise, as my mom tells me, now lives. Kusinku would then undergo a name change with lessened features that were once speculated. It went from being a city to now a resort getaway. This would be confirmed in a blog post called Kjun's Letter, a sneak peek at Cahaya. So in that, let's iron out some of the details. Kusinku is now known as Cahaya. Gameplay specific to Cahaya will be introduced. This includes boating, farming, exploring islands, and perhaps a rework to the fishing game mechanic. The fishing bit is a bit odd, because it's mentioned as a key feature coming to Cahaya, but we have fishing in the base game, so let's just be charitable and say it's a misspeak or even a translation error. Clarity on that has been quite tight-lipped, along with much of this, as is often the case when asked for clarity, or at the very least not known as public knowledge. To add to that, we know that jobs and schools will not make it into the resort world, and instead there's an emphasis on self-sustaining activities like farming and fishing, because we all know that farming and fishing are more hobbyist activities and in no way should be considered an actual career activity. Their words, not mine.
We didn't say that, no.
I'm joking, it's a joke. Suffice it to say, job improvements will be followed up separately. On that note, Cahaya is still separate from the base game, aka DLC, but free DLC during the early access phase of development. They still plan for Cahaya to release in August, and we'll hear more about it when it's officially revealed at Gamescom. As of July 22nd, an AMA about Cahaya was announced. There's a scheduled live stream on August 14th. There, they'll be answering questions given to them through Discord. My guess is that they are saving the most important answers there so they can, cushion whatever they want to say with pretty graphics and assets, or to generate interest for people to show up because they're not confident that the game is interesting enough to speak for itself. Also a joke. Half joking. Now that's the baseline lore I have up till now. With that, you're pretty much caught up to speed, so let's talk about the elefante in the room. Why? Or more specifically, why is it considered DLC? Now this is what I asked in their possible selection of questions for their AMA, because it's important that we know the reasoning, not just as consumers but as fans, and what this could possibly mean for any proposed DLCs in their early access phase. The caveat here is that it's free during early access, which isn't much of an answer at all, as that alone begets more questions. When the price of InZOI was announced, I said, this is what a pro-consumer game looks like. A cringe take, I know, but at the time I wasn't thinking the game would be at a tech demo state. I figured we'd get a stream of content-heavy updates in the initial months with strong, innovative gameplay decisions, not feedback paralysis. After all, even indie devs of varying sizes and other game studios who utilize early access view their initial months in early access as a driving motivator to make great strides with their game, or at the very least showcase a wide variety of gameplay clips exploring future developments. What more if they have the backing of a behemoth that is Krafton? Surely a one-time purchase with all that in mind would lead me down that ill-begotten take. I jumped the gun. Lesson learned, and what that lesson has taught me is to reframe my thinking. Speaking of which, I want to give a special thanks to Valerie5524, apologies if I butchered your name. Valerie dropped this link to a video that's quite telling of what we're seeing now. The video is called Development PD on the Stage. Let's uncover behind story about InZOI now. Please do keep in mind that the video is auto-translated, so there's going to be grammatical quirks. In this video, we get the behind-the-scenes process of the making of InZOI. For context, this video dropped on November 14th, 2023. It covers tons of topics like the thought process behind active careers, the announcement of the 3 cities planned for launch, the idea of spontaneity and life-shaping stories in-game, or the concept of enduring challenges and navigating those challenges, and then learning from them. You know, very much a different game than what we have now. But what I found most pertaining to our topic is the idea of the game actually being a prototype. In this video, we learn that the ultimate goal is to get the game into the hands of the most people as possible, then use their feedback to drive the game forward. Sound familiar? He states he grew frustrated by CBT, or closed beta tests, that would evaluate the game and predictions about success. He would go on to say, why don't we make a game and let YouTubers and streamers who are experts in the gaming genre get to know the game first, then watch their live streams while testing the game, and then we can decide how we should proceed with the game in the future and what possibilities it has. They're the best players in the genre, and they have heard a lot of stories from users while introducing the genre. So take that comment as you will, but the fact is, in 2025, that's still happening. The idea of providing bare bones foundations and letting a select few content creators, influencers, and handpicked feedback then govern development because after all, they're the experts, is what we're seeing now. Also, when I say handpicked feedback, I mean surveys being sent to a select group of people, because let's be real, is Discord really the best place to cultivate feedback to the point where it drives development? It's cluttered, and I imagine it's a mess to organize, but I don't know, you tell me. He would then go on to say, there's usually a term called prototype. When developers see if they can make this game, they make a prototype. Prototype is used to assess whether the game has business potential. I thought we could do it because it's crafting. As far as I know, I've never seen a prototype for a game done in this way. Now let's expand on that. That mentality hasn't appeared to shift all these years later. It's like we're still waiting for the dev team to take the reins and push ahead and create something new. Not us, not your select few, but you. On top of that, instead of an easy yes or no answer about this whole DLC stuff, we get old news about feedback or new news about feedback. If I have to read another post about feedback, I'm going to lose my mind. With the amount of feedback they've received over the course of the years in development, you can get that feedback to a whole other dev team, inject them with that same craft and lottery money, and then they could make a whole new game. There is no way the dev team doesn't know or understand what makes InZOI so incredibly lacking in features. I refuse to believe game developers of their status who have achieved what they have achieved, who have worked in the industry as long as they collectively have, that they don't know what's the most needed in their game right now. They have time and time again, from insights, pre-early access, to reviews at and after launch, and reviews and videos till now, there is just way too much information out there in the ether to be this clueless, where our feedback is what's illuminating and driving development. That is wild to imagine that's even remotely near the truth. But in the off chance that it is, does that mean InZOI's early access launch is just a bigger prototype test pool with a purchase barrier to entry? And why have I come around to that idea? Well, if their fumbling is to be believed, then the idea that our feedback has helped them realize that their 2 cities need drastic reimagining might very well make more sense, which is a staggering notion all in itself. I was so irritated when I watched LGR's first impression of InZOI, not because I didn't like him, far from it. He's as real and trusted as it gets when it comes to life sims, and he too was excited for InZOI. In a mindful approach, he actually kept away from the news surrounding InZOI and approached the game as anyone would in early access game. In his playthrough, he was shocked by the shallowness of it all, and I was bummed out he wasn't bringing in context as to why it was that way. But the truth is, early access is more than a buggy tech demo prototype showcasing. It's supposed to be the best outlook of potential that your game can express while understandably not being ready. Something so obvious that any newcomer from varying experiences in gaming should be able to notice. And I know what I know about InZOI because I read up on it, but that shouldn't be the expectation. And while while admittedly InZOI released more features than that of The Sims 4 1.0, in retrospect, that is a low bar to clear. Previous Sims iterations were better than The Sims 4 1.0, so much so that The Sims 4 released with less groundbreaking features than its previous installments. The Sims 4's primary contribution, aside from build mode, to its own genre was multitasking, which in a twisted irony is actually causing the main jank to much of their interactions a decade later. But aside from that, The Sims 4's success has largely rested on the idea that it was the only one there. You make every shot you take when the hoop is the size of New York. So then, Cahaya. Cahaya is a free DLC while InZOI is in early access. Yes, we'll learn more about it in August, and things can change even after that, hence the point of early access. But should this be heading down the path of what it looks like, then that means we're prototyping whether Cahaya is a good DLC or not, and what would that mean for future cities and locations? Will we have to beta test and prototype those too? And are there more free, quote-unquote, free DLCs in early access that may or may not be sold to us when InZOI exits early access? Please understand, okay, I am coming from a place where DLCs in early access are taboo. They're a cardinal sin, with few rare exceptions where it's permissible and not entirely shunned. For example, selling an art book to help with additional funding, or perhaps selling a soundtrack to their game. All of that is mainly due to those dev teams being indie. InZOI Studios is not indie. So actual full-on content being separated from the base game is straight up wild. You can call it free a million times over, it is weird. If this was any other gaming community, there would be pitchforks. So then what holds us back? That there's so few of us? Or maybe because it's free. Free for now, by the by, hopefully forever. But the precedent is strange. Doan and Bliss Bay are nowhere near, not even in the same galaxy, of being anything nearing complete. Don't let the devs feign ignorance here. They know that. So if their original two cities are still shallow and there's gameplay locked behind the Cahaya DLC, then why isn't Cahaya just updated to the base game? What, are we afraid people won't like the boating, fishing, and farming gameplay in the other cities? Is that gameplay way too drastic of a change that people would be upset to have it? Also, don't use that realism argument about not having farms in Bliss Bay. I was born and raised in LA. Don't tell me people don't have random homesteads and farms around here. Those gameplay features can exist in Bliss Bay, and I'm sure in Doan too. My point is, there's absolutely no reason why this should be separate from the base game, unless the idea is to sell it back to us later, but only after we've beta tested it for them. I mean, what is actually the game plan here, and why do we have to wait for a solid yes or no answer? This isn't the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Just confirm the thinking behind making this DLC and not a free update. Make it make sense. All of this is to say, I'd be remiss if I didn't touch on the Cahaya teaser, so here it is. There's a boat, palm trees, and a new location. All of it was pretty mid, all things considered, but you know what? On a side note, we did get conceptual gameplay. Well, more UI, a quality of life thing, a video clip also dropped alongside. This has been something I've been begging to see for months, so I do want to give them their flowers here. We get a clip showing that holding down Alt will slow down time. Cool, right? Riveting. As a fan of InZOI, in case you're unaware, we actually count these as huge wins, so InZOI 4 months later, or however long it's been, progress. Actual progress. It almost brings a tear to my eye. But now that you've heard my side of the story, what do you think? Is this Cahaya teaser enough to convince you that this should be DLC? Are you remotely worried what this might spell for InZOI's future, or are you just giddy about the boats? You know, I often hear people say, especially when they're wrong on the internet, they say, I have no regrets about what I said or did or whatever the case. But the thing is, I have so many regrets. I wish I could reach back in time and slap my fingers away from the keyboard. But I can't undo the past and change what I've said. I can only learn from it. Even as an adult, I still got a lot of growing up to do. And as a fan, I hope my Cahaya concerns are unfounded. If you like this video, please share your appreciation the best way you know how, and I want to thank you all so much for watching. I do appreciate that, and I appreciate you, and I hope to see you in the next video, whatever the next video may be. So until then, I will see you then. Bye for now.